So far we have seen some basic data types, and now we are going to focus on one of them, the last of the built-in Python data type, string or chains of characters. Basically, this is going to be very useful in many contexts. Whenever we want to say something, we probably will end up writing that at some point, and being able to manipulate these words, these sequences of characters in Python is going to be very important. But not only that, because they are sequences of characters, they also represent a nice soft introduction to sequences, which will be a huge issue in Python that we will mostly see with lists. So let's just do some operations with strings. We had defined before, you can scroll up if you want to, two string variables, one called your and the other called ifmix. And now let's see what happens when I use the plus operator with them. As you remember, a while back we used the plus operator with integers and floats, and what do you know? They added them, because that's the operator that we use for addition usually. In the case of strings, that's not what happens. If I use the plus operator with your and arithmix, I get one single string. That's the concatenation. I have joined them, the end of one string and the beginning of the other get united, and I get joined together, and I get one single string. I have put the result on this myString variable and printed it. So one operator that I can use with strings is the plus operator, which means concatenate. We see here an example of how operators can mean different things. I'm not doing any addition here. They can mean different things with different types of variables. Not only that, I can use other operators. For example, the square bracket, this one here. This one is going to let me access elements in my sequence. Sequences in Python are numbered from 0. The element in the first position is called the element in position 0. So everything goes from 0 to length -1. So if I tell Python to show me the element in position 0 by using these square brackets, I get the S. If I tell it to show me the next element, I get the W. Or what is in position 5? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Yes, a blank space. Let's see the next one. 6 should be a D. Yes, there it is. So by using the square bracket, I can access the elements in my sequence. String is a collection, a sequence with in order of characters, and I can access them here. We can even do things like use placeholder values with strings. Here I have some other example of concatenation, and here I'm printing one string that I'm defining here. By the way, let me just say that I've been using double quotes here to delimit my strings, but I can also use, as long as I use always the same language, single quotes, and things work just the same, unless I have a single quote in the middle, in which I have to tell it it's a single quote. Okay, well, doesn't matter. Let's go back to the double quotes. In general, using single quotes and double quotes, unless I have something in the middle that annoys me, is interchangeable. I have to always remember to open and close my strings in the same way. That is important. And here what I'm using is placeholders. This %s or %d that I have are telling Python, hey, don't write this. There is going to be a variable name later. Here they are after the percentage. So you have to write here the value of this. And here I'm telling it, and this is going to be a string, and this is going to be this %d is going to be an integer. And if I run it, it writes hello and then goes to a string variable called name that it has defined here, Cersei Lannister. There are D, which is num usurper, which is 5, heading to King's Landing. Notice that it's important that I have told Python that it's an integer. Python is very flexible, but sometimes it will just believe me. I've told it it's an integer, but now I'm giving it a float value, and it will not care. It will just read this as an integer. So if it has decimal positions, it will just drop them. Okay. Types in Python sometimes change, evolve, and sometimes if I define them, Python believes me. So there are many things that I can do to format my strings in a pretty way, and I really encourage you to give them a look. What other things can I do with strings? Well, I can print the length of my string, for example. My string is here, and I can use the len function that allows me to print the length of any sequence and also of a sequence of characters in my string, and it's 55. I can access several elements as I did before. I can even access them from the back. So if instead of using 0, I use 0, 1, 5, I use -1, -2, -5, I get, starting at the back, -1 is this point, -2 is this other point, and -5 is -1, -2, -3, -4, and -5 is an E. Okay, of course, from the back I don't have -0. So the first element in the sequence is 0. The last element in the sequence is either length -1 or -1 for short. So I can access whatever I want. And I have to be careful not to access outside of my string. Said the last one, I can call it length -1 or -1. If I try to access len, I'm going out of the string and I get an error. And when you try to print element with square brackets n, which is the length of the string, this is called out of range. Python is telling me no, there is nothing there, nothing that I can access. There are many built-in functions in Python, and I encourage you to Google Python string and see some of them. But here we have some examples. I can use in to tell whether or not my string contains a sequence of characters, and this gives me a Boolean value, and we will be seeing what those are in the next session. So here it's telling me false because that is not in. So dreams are made of this. Who am I to disagree? But dreams are, and I can even use other functions like find. Okay, I'm seeing this is just for advanced students. Len, which is a function call. So I'm using here a variable, and I have something that does something and receives my variables as input. I'm having some special function calls built into Python, which have this different syntax in, for example. And I'm even using this dot syntax. So I'm taking one of my variables, doing dot, and then doing something with that also receiving some parameters, some arguments. This dot and the name of a function sequence is something that's very used in object-oriented programming, and we will see a course about that a while later. So I can find things in my string, and it will return me the first position where that thing happened, if it happens. I can replace them. I can replace instances in my string. So for example, if I call my string dot replace a by lol, instead of my original string, I get a string with the a's replaced by lol. But that does not modify my original string. I called it with my string, but if I print my string, I still have the same I had before. I didn't change it. Why? Well, because strings, and most data types in Python are immutable. What does that mean? It means that even though, see, I have here an integer type I cannot change equals 2, this means that I have created a position in memory, written the number 2 on it, and then assigned an arrow that points to that memory position, and that arrow's name is I cannot change. But I cannot change is the arrow and not the memory position. Although I cannot change takes the value of 3, and it works. If I print it does contain 3, it doesn't mean that I go to the memory position that contained a 2 before and now put a 3 there. That I cannot do. Python does not work like this. Other programming languages do, but not Python. In Python, most types are immutable, which means that when I reassign a variable, the arrow that was pointing to the memory position containing 2 is pointed to some other memory position containing 3. So I can change my variables, I can point them somewhere else, I can change their content, but the memory positions are not changed. And this can be seen, for example, here. If I try to access one element of a string and change it, my string of 2 takes the value E. I'm trying to go to the memory position, change it. Python will tell me I cannot do that. Type error, string object does not support item assignment. Okay? If I want to change the contents of my string, I need to create a new string, for example, replacing it with LOL, and then do the assignation. Say, remember that string that I have, now it should contain the result of this. And with this, I can change my string. At the beginning, my string was this, and after doing this calculation and then assigning its result to my string, I can modify it, but I cannot modify it memory position by memory position because strings, as most data types in Python, are immutable. That's it. That's all for our first session in this basic Python programming course.